What we're going to do today is the ivy. Well, you know, I always have a little story to go with it, right? Okay, what happened was, wow, probably 30 years ago, I was asked to give a little lecture at an interior-scapes nursery. One of my friends was a manager there. Anyway, so I gave the presentation, and what I saw was ivy, you know, made into a little globe, you know, sticking in like that. And I said, can I take a little cutting? So I did, and that's when I got started with the needle point ivy. So my thought was, okay, instead of this just big, well, it looked like a lollipop, right? Round and then stick. So I said, well, I could take the same concept and I'll do it in the bonsai style that will grow indoors. Hey, that makes sense to me. Well, a couple of years after that, there was an article in the Sacramento Bee. They used to have a large section for gardening. Dick Tracy was the editor. Well, anyway, there was an article about the ivy at Mendocino Botanical Garden. So my wife and I took a trip out there, and they have literally hundreds of varieties of ivy. I bought a book, and then I gave it to my mom. Well, my mom is a flower arranger and plant lover, so she wanted me to get these different varieties. Anyway, so, and then, you know, ivy is very simple to propagate. So we made hundreds of, if not thousands of them. Anyway, so make this long story short, I had a bunch. Okay, well, unfortunately, ivy is very easy to grow, but it's hard to make anything of substance because all they want to do is to run. But today, I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I still have. And these are approaching like 30 plus years now, and then it's not huge, but that's what it takes to do. So this is our first one. Okay, and what I'm going to do is to just cut these really long ones. So these haven't been pruned since maybe I had it all cleaned up for the holiday season. So what? Well, during the cold months, it doesn't grow much. But then as soon as it warmed up, it just started to grow again. So that's what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing 5 of them today, and I'll show you the beginning, and then I'll show you the end. Growing these are easy, but in the growing process, you know, when you have these little 4-inch containers, they get all tangled up. So what I found was these require a lot more effort to grow them to this point, and then I did have hundreds of them at one point, and then I met a guy, David. He and I become pretty good friends. He is the foremost on ivy. He loved my ivy. He bought a lot of my ivy, but he's also taught me a lot. I always thought that evergreens could not be defoliated, and that's one of the things he told me, that you could defoliate these things more than once a year. And sure enough, you could take all these leaves off and then they still come right back. And he said you could do it multiple times, and I tried it, and it does. Unfortunately, it requires a lot of effort. Okay, this is the needle point that I got. Of course, it's not this plant, but I got a little cutting, and all my nursery stock came from that. But anyway, that's the before shot, and I'll go ahead and prune these and get back to you with the finished product. Okay, this is a variegated variety. Like I said, they have hundreds of varieties. Now, unfortunately, at the time that I was at the garden, my finances was not that great. So I was limited to buying only a small handful, plus the book, of course. And if I get the chance to go back, I would like to get more varieties, but I really don't want to redo these ivy because I don't think I have another 30 years to develop them into, and they root readily. But the hardest part is to get something that has a thick enough trunk to become a legitimate bonsai. And that was the biggest hurdle for me. Well, other than the fact that when you're trying to grow them, they grow among themselves and they get tangled unless you prune them all the time. But, you know, if you have to try to grow something indoors, this might be one of them. Although I still think that it grows better outside. But I did get the original mother plant from an interior scape place. Actually, it was an interior scapes, another needlepoint. I think needlepoint is the best one because it has the finest texture. But if you follow David's method, you could get the mid-size one really shrunk down too. One time he came by and showed me one of his creations. The whole thing was only about maybe 2 inches, had a very thick trunk, and then a perfect taper, and the tiniest of the foliage. I said, wow. I really like hanging out with him because he could teach me things. Okay, here's another one. So I'll go ahead and prune this one also. Here's another one. This is a root over rock, I guess. I think, like I said before, it takes good 30 years to get this kind of trunk. So ivy is easy to grow, but try to get some with substance is another story. This is the variegated variety. And I think the style, we could call this clasping a rock. What it's doing is it's wrapped around the rock so that it kind of suggests that it has a big trunk. Okay, I wonder which side is the front. Is that the front? You got the front? Or was this the front? Well, it doesn't need a new pot. This plastic training pot is really getting worn looking. But I like to wait till people decide they want it because if it takes 5 years to sell in a nice ceramic pot, it gets. This is a root over rock. It's really a long process to get ivy to get trunk like this, trunk and root. This one probably more than 30 years old. This one here feels like Hawaii to me. It could be from other tropical areas, but I don't like the humidity, so I haven't been to that many tropical countries. Hawaii, we have friends and things like that, so I've been there a few times, but that's not one of my first choices. I'd rather have it hot and dry. I hope you enjoyed this little chapter on ivy. What I found is that for some reason this thing is aggravating my allergy. My nose is running, and I'm not sure if my voice has changed a little bit. No, the ivy is not what you call the highly rated material, but hopefully you guys will give it a try because it's easy to grow. And although I still grow everything outdoors, these should grow indoors also. But anyway, this is Hiro saying goodbye, and I'm gonna get these outside and get some fresh air and clear my sinuses. Anyway, take care everybody. I'll see you again real soon in another chapter.